you say hi? What's up, Tweener heads? Welcome back to another video here with Phil, and welcome to Tweener Head Tennis. This is where we talk about tennis in a more casual way for you guys to find out what is going on tour, as well as behind the scenes content of what is happening off the court as well. So I wanted to talk to you guys today about the tennis schedule. Now, for many people that don't know, tennis is a much longer sport compared to some of the other professional sports out there, especially for a team aspect. Tennis goes on from January up until basically Christmas in December. And that's one of the very interesting things. Most players and teams have an off season where they can kind of relax and do something else that they love off season. But with tennis, there's a lot of tournaments going on that just don't seem to end. To put into perspective of how long the season is for some of these tennis pros, let's just start with the ATP level. The ATP level has about 60 tournaments throughout the year. That doesn't include ATP finals, next gen finals, Davis Cup, or the Laver Cup. And on the women's side, there's 65 tournaments, but that doesn't include Fed Cup or either of the finals that they have. So that's roughly about 64, 65 if you include total. And each tournament lasts a week or two. So you could win a tournament, be there for 7 days, and then immediately travel to that next tournament that you have to play, bearing in mind that you may not be injured. If you lose, you pack up your stuff, you go to your next tournament immediately because you don't want to miss out on a spot inside the tournament, especially if you're a lower ranked player. Now, this is where it kind of gets weird because the ATP Challenger Tour, which is kind of a step down from the ATP Tour, because the players within that 100 to 150 range, and maybe even farther like 150 to 250 range, start to play and qualify, which gives them more points to play at higher levels like ATP Tour 250s and above. The amount of tournaments that happen throughout the year, which in their defense gives multiple players many opportunities to play throughout the season, but there's 159 events that happen throughout a year. 159. That's not just one game like a baseball player has over 150 games in a year, but they play one game per day, and then they have a travel day, and then they play another series or game. Players have to play in, day out throughout the year. 159 events, it just seems insane when you think about that, because how can you play that many events? I think on average players try to play 30 events, maybe 27. I think the ATP average is around 34 tournaments, just because they want to give their body some rest and they want to be able to play tournaments longer and play in the bigger tournaments that allow them to get more points and more prize money. But to think about that on a logistical perspective, they have to travel from tournament to tournament. Not all tournaments are in the same country. They have to travel by themselves. They have to pack. They have to get hotels. They have to get everything for themselves when it comes to traveling alone. When you have teams playing it that may have kind of a similar schedule like baseball, where they have to play so many games, they have people booking that for them. All they have to worry about is playing the game, not anything else. And what's funny is about this scheduling is that after the US Open, everything just kind of disappears and no one really talks about tennis ever again. But in reality, the whole Asian swing is still going on. I mean, did you know Samoa Halep lost in like the second round of a premier tournament? Neither did I until I checked scores 2 days ago. With the schedule being so long, it also has players defending their points, and that's a concept that not a lot of other teams or individual sports have to do. In tennis, when someone has a certain performance at a tournament, say Roger Federer makes the semifinals of the US Open, just as an example. Roger Federer would have to make the semifinal next year of the US Open to maintain those points in his ranking. Because if Roger Federer doesn't make the semifinal the next year, he would start losing points and all of a sudden start dropping in the rankings. And when it comes to the Challenger Tour, a lot of those players have to start winning the same tournaments over and over again to maintain the ranking. And some players who get injured can have something called a protected ranking. That's something that I believe Murray has used this year, and some other players, and it's kind of confusing, so I'm just going to explain to you what a protected ranking means. According to the ATP, a protected ranking is: a player may petition the executive chairman and president for an entry protection when he is physically injured and does not compete in any tennis event for a minimum period of 6 months. The entry protection shall be a position in the ATP rankings as determined by the player's average ATP rankings position during first 3 months of injury. For seeding purposes, the early protection shall be entry protection shall be for entry into the main draw for qualifying competition for special exemption considerations. It shall be in effect for either the first 9 tournaments the player competes in using the entry protection, or for the period up to 9 months beginning with the first tennis event. Now that kind of just doesn't make sense, but this is the part that should make sense to you. If a player is physically injured and does not compete in any tennis event for a period of 12 months or longer, the entry protection shall be in effect for the first 12 singles tournaments and the first 12 doubles tournaments that the player competes in using the early protection, except for wildcards and entries as directly submitted with current position in the ATP rankings, for a period up to 12 months beginning of the first tennis event. See, that makes more sense for the rankings protection. So a player can be injured, and up until a certain tournament after he's injured, he's allowed to say, I would like to use my protected ranking to play and compete in this tournament. It's a bit more confusing, but it's also the most descriptive answer I have found on the internet. So, what is my dog eating? In terms of comparing this to the length of a baseball season, let's compare the rankings to, say, the PGA and golf. Now, golf, in terms of ranking system, this is how they rank their players over the year. Points remain on a player's tally for 2 years up to a maximum of 52 events played during that time, but they're reduced on a sliding scale after 13 weeks, so recent performances carry greater weight. So essentially, a player can have the same ranking for 2 years after they performed well at a certain tournament. In terms of tennis players wanting this kind of system, it can vary, because you can have players like, for example, Jack Sock, his highest ranking was in the top 20s, and if we had a 2-year ranking system, Jack Sock would still be within that system because he did so well in 2018. He would still be doing well in 2019, even though he's fallen outside the top 300 at one point this year. If I was to suggest a ranking system based off the length of this schedule, I would say we could just start everybody off at 0 at the beginning of the year. But instead of just having it all random order, everyone starts at 0 at the last spot they started in the ATP rankings or WTA rankings. That way, everyone starts at the same level at 0, but everyone's placed inside the same ranking as they were before. So that way, when they start their year, they can eventually continue to be at that same spot or ranking that they were in the previous year. For scheduling, the schedule is just way too damn long. I don't understand how players do it, and I don't understand why it's so long to kind of have this. And in terms of the Asian swing that's happening after the US Open, no one really knows that tennis is going on. You kind of lose track of what's going on in the tennis world after the US Open's over, so I would like to see less tournaments after that as well, because tournaments are going till Christmas, and that shouldn't be happening at all, because it may give players more opportunities, but it's for a player to continuously play after the US Open, it just doesn't make sense to play that long. So I would like to know your guys' opinion of how long the tennis schedule is, about these ranking systems, of how they should be situated. Please let me know down in the comments below. And if you are new to the channel, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We're halfway to 1,000 subscribers. Our goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, as well as making sure you leave a big like on this video. For more behind the scenes content, check out all the links to our social medias down in the description below, as well as our website at tweenerheaddentist.com. So I hope to see you guys soon. Thanks, guys.